time. Anyway, this is Simon Chartier's New York Stories, but I have my guitar handy. Okay, so we're gonna. I think this is number 27. Well, so I left off with like the death of Tyrone, and this was right before Tyrone was killed. We played Max's. I was telling you the story about Raven. That's how we started playing the sax. So then we had. It's the end of '81, and things are just kind of messed up. I mean, we were dealing with the fallout for that, but of course we decided to keep on going. Now we don't have a lot of equipment, but we had at that point, Mark Ettinger was still a bass player, and then now Don Death was not there anymore, and Alan Thompson, my buddy from Studio 10 and the Rock Against Racism guy and everything, he came in on drums, and I think he had been the drummer in the hippie country rock band where I met Mark Ettinger, but I don't remember. But anyway, so then we ran into this trombone player, Adam, but we called him T-Bone Lefkowitz. And we gave him the stage name T-Bone Lefkowitz. After that, there was that rockabilly singer Tex Rabinowitz, which I always thought that was fucking hilarious. So we called him T-Bone Lefkowitz. So we soldiered on. We used to rehearse at this place, the Wormhole. Like, you could never get away with this shit now. Like, people used to rehearse in their apartments. I remember we used to go to 81st Street and Amsterdam Avenue and play in this guy's basement, like, so fucking loud. Like, you couldn't get away with that shit now. Or like jamming out in the Bretton Hall Hotel the way we used to back in the 70s. So we used to play in Mark Ettinger's basement, and we were rehearsing. And Alan Thompson, he was actually really cool because he was a hippie and he had long hair and he was in all that hippie stuff. But he also, being an RAR guy, he really knew a lot of great punk records, and he would turn me on. And he's the guy to turn me on to the Subhumans. He's the guy to turn me on to DOA. He's the guy to turn me on to the Dead Kennedys. So he turned me on to a lot of cool shit. And we just kept on rehearsing and practicing, and we tried to play what gigs we could. I don't remember where we would play because Studio 10 had gotten raided and shut down. Now it's like this yuppie condominium. If those people only knew, it used to be like an anarchist squat. So then we had, let us know when you have a gig soon. I sure will. When I'm going to get into that later, Maria. I got a big rant about that, but we played what gigs we could. We used to borrow like the Rock Against Racism PA system, or part of it. I mean, it was huge. It weighed fucking 50 million tons, but it got the job done. So we didn't have a van anymore. But we struggled on and we struggled on. And after a while, Jono had to split the band for a while. He had some shit that he had to take care of, so he had to go away for a while. It was actually a pretty long while. So that was kind of demoralizing too, because Jono was part of the chemistry of the whole band, the whole dynamic of it, and the two guitar sound. Jono was just a very vigorous and very driving and muscular player, and I've always been this kind of weird, angular, kind of artsy fartsy player. So we had that that contrast of our sounds, you know. And but I just kept working on music and everything. I was crashing at my mom's house, and then I went to Paris for a while. I got hurt over in Paris. I got caught in a subway door. I actually went over there to see my girlfriend, but she never showed up, and it turns out she was going out with another guy. She just never told me. So I was like in Paris, and I got a dislocated shoulder in the subway. I got my right when I got to Paris, and I got like stood up by my girlfriend at the time. I got stuck in the fucking turnstile in the Paris subway, and my shoulder, I'd already hurt my shoulder a few times. It came out of the socket bad. So I was in the hospital in Paris, and then I got out and I was living in some really cold kind of flea bag hotel, but I done okay. I had a little battery powered amp and my electric guitar because I went over there intending to live over there for a while and busk and everything, which I did. I just played guitar in the subway, and believe it or not, I kind of supported myself over there, playing like Gene Vincent and Elvis and Carl Perkins, and you know, all the French. They love rockabilly. They're all like rockers. You know, they were really into that shit, and I was playing like Johnny Thunder's songs too, and whatever I could in the subway. And so it would, you know, I could live in this. I think the hotel was like $18 a day. I'm not kidding. And then I could get bread and cheese, and I was pretty set. And it was good because I kind of kicked over there. You know, I wasn't doing drugs. I didn't do anything the whole time I was in Paris. I didn't. I was completely like, you know, no marijuana even. I was straight. So I kind of straightened up a little bit. It was like 81. So I'd been at, you know, I was, I kind of got away from like, you know, doing drugs. So I was living in Paris and playing in the subway, but then, you know, I had to go back. You know, I only could stay a certain amount of time before your passport get, gets gets rotten or something, you know. So hello, Luis. I'm glad you guys. Thanks for the thanks for the comments. So I came back to New York, and you know, I kind of fell back into the lifestyle I'd been living before. But I started going to Dan Lynch like all the time. I'd go to Dan Lynch, and I would just hang around my guitar and try to sit in with all of the great blues people that played there. Bill Dicey, Luvette Jackson, the Holmes brothers, Pop, C. Sherman, and Wendell, and Gibb. They were just so great. Charles Otis, I was sitting in with him all the time. And then I met this character, Barbecue Bob, who I still know to this day. And he was playing harmonica. And then I ran into this guy, Steve Antonakos, who just passed away recently, great guitar player. And Bill Durkin was over there. And who else did I meet at Dan Lynch? Oh man, it just goes on forever and ever. You know, you could go there and you could see like Hubert Sumlin play, you know, like or somebody great like that. And I would just be hanging around. But I met Joe Drift, aka Joe Troiola, over there, who wound up playing in the Worms. And I was just trying to keep the Worms together and everything. So these aren't the greatest New York stories, so I'm just more talking about what I was doing at the time. It's probably pretty boring, but these musicians were not boring. But this is one crazy ass New York story. I was back, you know, getting involved back with bad things, and I was down on like, there was this place, Mad, and it was in the basement of this building, like half a flight down. It was between A and B on East 2nd Street. So back then, if you were trying to cop, like the deeper you got into Alphabet Town, the more you were sticking your neck out for bad shit to happen. You had that many more blocks to try to make it back to like First Avenue or something, or like, you know, like white boy territory, whatever, a little more like, you know. But when you started getting over to B and C and D, Like that's what a good shit was, but it also just started getting like everybody knew why you were there. So they see you coming down the street, they know you got at least $10 on you, and if you're leaving, they know you got a bag on you. So the Mad, it was kind of more close to like the artsy fartsy hipster part of the Lower East Side. So it was like you get in and get out a little quicker, you know. And I'd done pretty good in that life. Like I only really got jumped once, and it was by the cops. It was because they whipped. It was cops, and they just beat the shit out of me and robbed me anyway. But you know, like I said before, I used to get high with the cops too, but that's another story. So I used to go into this place Mad, and you had to crawl. It was a sub basement, so you had to, if they had this little red light on, if the cops were coming down the street, and they would yell "Bajando, bajando, bajando," and you had to get down on the floor. All the lights would go out. They had some remote control for the light, and this little red light would go on, so you couldn't see nothing. You'd be down there. Then they go todo va bien, and you could get up again and go to the back and get your dope. So one time I went to Matt, and it was like, you know, the same thing, bajando, bajando, saying you don't know what the fuck's going on. You're lying on the ground, and then I got my dope, you know, todo va bien, and I got off, and I get to the corner of fucking Second Street and Avenue A, and there's this guy lying face down in the gutter, dead, right? And when you OD, you kind of turn purple, you know, so he was kind of turning purple and everything. And there was a bunch of people around him, and nobody was like, "Oh, he's dead. Oh, we got to help him. Oh, call a ambulance." No, people were going through his pockets. Somebody took off his shoes. They were going through his shoes to see if he had any dope in there, and they were going through his pockets. And then people were asking, "What brand did he do? What brand did he do?" Because you figure if somebody dies, that's the shit you want to get. You just do half of what they did. Like if this guy died off of one bag of fucking like 357 Magnum, I'll just do a half, because then I'm gonna get nice, you know. So I remember that, and I think like I weigh 140 now, but I used to weigh, I think I weighed like 123 or something, and I just was like, I was kind of depressed because I was kind of back in the U.S. and you know I'd gotten jilted by the girl and everything, but I kind of picked myself up. I started going to Dan Lynch all the time and jamming with all the blues people, and I kind of got back into Chicago blues because that's what I was really into. 75, 70s, you know, 75 to 78, till I started playing, you know, the wedding bands and shit. I was really Chicago blues guy, and I kind of got back into that because I was hanging around with so many blues people. And so the Dan Lynch thing was great. It probably saved my life because that's how I got into Barbecue Bob and the Spare Ribs. And I started meeting cats. I met Jerry Duggar, who was eventually the fantastic bass player in the Worms. And I met him there, Dan Lynch, and I met Joey Troyola, Joe Drift, who he was a great guy. He was also in High Sheriffs of Blue with Jerry Williams, JW, and they used to play the A7, and they were like another band that mixed punk and blues. And which I say that's always been like the cornerstone of my whole life, is like mixing punk with like older blues or country based forms of music has been my stock and trade, you know, when I'm not playing jazz or something. So hey Maria, that's your bedtime story. Yeah, but it ain't about the three little bears he wears. He's about Simon, the fucking Simon, emaciated dope fiend. But anyway, so you know, I met so many people. They're like Jerry. When I met him, he'd been maybe playing the bass for under a year, but he was just such a fantastically talented, such great ears, just a natural musician, gift from God person, you know. And I always say God's always spoken to me through Jerry Duggar, you know. So then, and there was just such a great scene back then at Dan Lynch, you know. And I tried to pick the Worms back up, you know. At this point, now I'm going to deviate into this other story. I got to backtrack a little bit to the Eddie D Orchestra days. I'm going to my mother's house, and there was all these kids that hung out in the street by my mother's house, and they all had kind of like, they kind of looked like, they all kind of just, it was the 70s, so they all had that like Bon Scott from AC/DC look, like that feather cut long hair and denim jackets with like, they painted pictures of Kiss on the back, so it'd say Kiss, and you'd have like those 4 fucking ho dads from Kiss, those fucking meatballs that are all richer than me, but you know, fuck them. So like, uh, and they would have bell bottoms, you know, but they were all like these mean guys that used to try to beat people up and rob you and shit. So like one time I'm coming home, I'm going to go to my mother's house from the Eddie D Orchestra, so I had to carry my Fender Deluxe Reverb. And I remember because I was coming from Sheepshead Bay on those old ass subway trains, right? And I had to go from Sheepshead Bay to like 77th Street, York Avenue, where my mom lived. So I'm carrying my Gibson hollow body guitar and my Deluxe Reverb all the way from Lexington Avenue to fucking York Avenue, like 5 miserable long blocks. So all of a sudden, all these kids come up on me. Now I'm wearing a suit because I'm coming from a wedding band gig, and they were like, "Hey, look at that faggot over there carrying that shit. Let's steal his guitar." So they were like coming around me, "Hey, faggot, give us your guitar and everything." So I was like, I'm going to have to fight all these fuckers. And I was like, this is going to be great. It's 4 in the morning. I got to fight these fucking guys, you know. And they, then all of a sudden, one of them said to the other, "Hey, wait a minute. That guy, he's friends with the eye doctor." And see, that's what saved my ass, because the eye doctor had beaten the shit out of all of them, okay? And one time, the eye doctor's one of my best friends. I won't put his real name, but like, the eye doctor beat the shit out of all of them, like viciously. The eye doctor was a fucking vicious, remorseless motherfucker that would, that if you displeased him, he would just fuck you up so bad. And he just didn't give a fuck. So they were like, "Oh, that's that guy. He's tight with the eye doctor. He's tight with the eye doctor." And all of a sudden, they were like, they were shitting their pants, because they knew if they tried to fuck with me, then I would tell the eye doctor, and he would come after them, and he would probably fucking kill all of them. All right, and I'm not joking. So, they were like, "Hey, dude, hey man, you want to smoke a joint? Man, play us a song." So I went up to one of their apartments where the guy lived with his grandmother. Now they all wanted to be my friend because they're afraid of my friend, the eye doctor. So they changed their tune real quick. They weren't afraid of me. There was like 5 of them and 1 of me. But so now they want to get high. So they had some joint of shitty Dirtweed, and I played a few songs from them. But that's how I met these guys that wound up being my friends, like Dave Randall and Greg Poulos. He was in that gang, but then they were, you know, but then we all were friends, right? So, you know, after that, they never fucked with me again. And, you know, I would see them, we'd hang out, "Hey, how you doing?" You know, whatever. But Greg Poulos in later years wound up being the manager of the Worms. So now I get back from Europe. I was playing over there, and I'm back. I'm trying to keep the Worms together. Now, Greg, at this time, I used to see him around the neighborhood, and he had this thing about stealing motorcycles. You'd see him, like, you know, I'd be down on Lower East Side or whatever. I was like, I didn't even hit the fucking scene until midnight. I consider anything before midnight's for the squares. So I was like a midnight to 8 a.m. guy down. I would see Greg all over town on a different motorcycle every time, because he was just fucking heisting them, right? So he nicked fucking Harley Davidson, and he got into an accident. He got hit by an ambulance. He was doing about 85 miles an hour on Madison Avenue, and this ambulance came through, and he got, oh God, he almost died. He almost died, and he got hurt real bad, Greg, and he was in a wheelchair. And so I used to go over to, he lived with his mother, and I felt bad. I used to go over and play guitar for him for hours and hours and sing him songs and hang out with his mom and his cousin Johnny and his friend Ted Whitmore. That was his friend, his childhood friend, his cousin Johnny. And so I would go play guitar for him and jam for him and just try to like, give him some company and try to be his friend, because I felt so shitty about him getting hurt, and I wanted to, do something for him. So I would go over there like every night and play for him, and he wound up being the Worms manager in later years. And we'll get into that later, but that's how I met Greg. So and then so it gets on to like, I kept the Worms together, and we were just waiting for Jono to come back, and we used to try to play Dan Lynch once in a while, and we used to try to play other places, like, whatever gig I could get. We played at Fordham University, and we got booed. We started playing like Romance Without Finance. So we went all the way up to the Bronx, and people were booing at us and, yeah, get off the stage. So that wasn't so great. And then that's also when we did that gig. I told you about that gig when we played at Sammy the Bull Gravano's club, the Plaza Suite, in right on like it's right on like McDonald Avenue and 86th Street in Bensonhurst. We played there. We almost got killed. So that was that era. And then Greg's Poulos' cousin Johnny, he bought a post office truck for $200, and he used to drive us around. We played this place up in Westchester called Bendovers. We used to play there. They used to love us up there, and the place was called Bendovers. Everybody was like, "What are you playing? A gay bar?" And it's like, I'll tell you the truth, I would have no problem playing a gay bar or nothing. Gay people never bothered me or nothing. I don't got no problem with them. I would have played a gay bar, but it wasn't a gay bar. It was just like the name of the place, Bandovers. And the bartender's name was Captain Silly. It was in Pelham, so it was right outside of the Bronx. Like you go over that little river by Co-op City, and you're in Pelham straight off. So it was right near the Bronx. So we used to go play up there all the time. We're just trying to fucking survive, And then we had Georgie on the drums, and he had a set of drums, and he had a van. He had like a Chevy C10. He had no GMC carryall. It wasn't a van. It was a carryall. It was like kind of looked like a pregnant station wagon. It was like a pickup truck, but a station wagon body on the back. So we used to go play all over places, And we kind of had a rotating cast of bass players. We had Johnny DeAngelis and Joy Troyola, and but we were just kind of drifting around, knocking around. Like we tried to make a couple of demos. They never really came out right, but it was, for some reason, people liked us. A lot of people liked the Worms, and I don't really think we had our shit together yet, but for some reason we had enough people that liked us, or we had something that people enjoyed, and we were able to keep going. So that's New York stories for tonight. And then we're going to start getting into the real nitty gritty of fucking crazy shit on the next one, okay? But it's getting late. I just felt like doing one now. And thanks for listening. All right, guys, take care.